public relations professor at San Jose State University. Sean, it appears that a lot of people are saying, and I think a lot of us kind of know, that this Rooney Rule, which allows people or requires NFL teams to hire or to interview head coaches that are black or of minorities, is a sham.
Well, I think again, it's the worst kept secret around pro sports, in particular the National Football League. Since the Rooney Rule started back in 2003, there's only been 15 black coaches hired out of 130 vacancies. So it's not a surprise to me that we're down after Brian Flores was let go, after having a winning campaign, no less, that we're down to one black head coach in Mike Tomlin.
So why are we still here in 2022? I mean, this is no surprise, as you just mentioned, to a lot of African-American men and men of color. This case, brings up all these feelings that a lot of people have, even with some companies in corporate America.
Mm-hmm. One thing that Brian Flores said, and I watched his interviews this morning. One thing that Brian Flores said that I did somewhat take exception to was, in part, one of his objectives for filing this class action lawsuit is to change the hearts and minds of those hiring. What we do know about diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it be in the National Football League or in other industries, is that hearts and minds is not necessarily what we look to change. It's those things that's ultimately going to impact the bottom line that drive the decision making. We need objective measures. We need transparency. We need to see exactly what goes into this hiring process so we can get away from these subjective measures that go back into implicit bias and hiring bias and familiarity biases that go into these decisions. And if we know anything outside of Shad Khan in Jacksonville and Gail Benson with the New Orleans Saints, and to an extent Virginia McCaskey with the Chicago Bears, the other 30 or 31 franchises, they are run by white men. And we do know that there is an issue with familiarity bias that goes into it, amongst some other challenges that we face that continue to be barriers that hedge black and brown candidates from getting the jobs that they have worked so hard and they deserve.
Sean, what is it going to take to get more African Americans and people of color into these rooms to make these decisions?
Well, it's going to take a number of things. The interesting part about the way that the NFL works, and I spent some time in the NFL, coincidentally, with the now Washington Commanders. I worked in football personnel, and I saw firsthand several black coaches, upstart coaches, somewhat feeling a bit pressured to take some of these sham interviews so owners could check the Rooney Rule box. I think that what we need to start moving towards is, one, the National Football League, and we need to understand that the National Football League office and Roger Goodell, they effectively work for and with the owners. So it cannot stop there. I think that we need to start putting measures in place, working with the Coaches Association to ensure that there is transparency and a rubric and metrics that are in place so we can see exactly what is going into making these hiring decisions. The NFL League office, much like when they worked with the Rooney family to put the Rooney Rule in place, they can enact that. They can work with the 32 team owners in order to try to put these transparency measures in place. So it's not hearsay after the fact, and we don't need a Brian Flores putting his potential career on the line in order to pave the way and clear the journey for those coming behind him. Transparency is the only way we do that.
Well, this story is just beginning. Dr. Sean Fletcher, San Jose State University, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Sal.